Hello, this is Tony Heller from RealClimateScience.com. Joe Biden, whom the press commonly refers to as the President of the United States, announced today that he's going to eliminate carbon soon. This follows up on a campaign promise he made last year to end fossil fuels.
But kiddo, I want you to just take a look, okay? You don't have to agree, but I want you to look in my eyes. I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel, and I am not going to cooperate. Okay?
He followed up on his promise. In his first couple weeks in office, he shut down all new oil and gas leasing on public lands. The purpose of this action was to reduce the supply of United States oil and gas because Joe Biden believed that that would somehow prevent hurricanes and other bad weather. He apparently believes that burning expensive gas from the Middle East and Russia is better for the climate than burning low-cost American products. And quite predictably, after he promised to shut down the supply of U.S. oil and gas, the price of those products skyrocketed. This made his friends in the Middle East and Russia extremely wealthy. As much as the Biden family personally benefits from U.S. dollars flowing to his friends in the Middle East and Russia, the skyrocketing prices became a big political problem for him at home. So in October, his brilliant press secretary announced that they were looking for ways to increase the supply of oil, which they'd shut down earlier in the year. She said at that press conference that the United States does not control the supply of oil, even though reducing the supply of oil was the whole point of them shutting down oil and gas leasing earlier in the year. These people are real geniuses, and they came up with a plan to release oil from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve. This reserve was designed to defend America against foreign enemies rather than the domestic enemies who currently control Washington, D.C. But Joe Biden seems to have quickly forgotten about what he did 2 weeks ago, and today he announced he's going to get rid of carbon completely. 13 years ago, Joe Biden promised 5 million green new jobs, of which he delivered less than 5,000. And he promised that 25% of our electricity would come from solar and wind by the year 2025. He didn't do too well with that promise, as solar and wind only make up about 3% of the world's energy supply, and it's hardly made any progress at all over the past 14 years. The world runs off of coal, oil, and gas, and most countries outside of the United States and Western Europe are intelligent enough to understand that. But unfortunately, our governments are run by people who aren't very intelligent. Over the past 30 years, our leaders have signed dozens of climate agreements which have had no impact on the growth of atmospheric carbon dioxide at all. This is the Dickerson coal, oil, and gas power plant along the Potomac River, which powers most of the Washington, D.C. area. I took this picture on Valentine's Day 2016, which was the coldest Valentine's Day on record in the northeastern United States. I had a pretty cold bike ride along the Potomac that day. If this power plant was shut down, it would be a complete catastrophe for the people of the region. And all those DC Tesla drivers just wouldn't have any way to recharge their cars. Here's another picture of the frozen Potomac, which I took during January 2018. New Year's 2018 was the coldest on record in the northeastern United States, and you almost could have walked from Washington over to Virginia across the river. These were people skating on the reflecting pool after it got down to almost 0 degrees Fahrenheit the night before during the first week of January 2018. And here's a picture we took on March 7th, 2015, hiking on the frozen Chesapeake Bay. Washington weather expert Andy Weiss told me it was probably the first time Chesapeake Bay was frozen in March since the 18th century. Joe Biden thinks that if he shuts down the energy supply, he can save the D.C. area from overheating. The number of hot days in the D.C. area peaked in 1930 and have been declining ever since. This is the data from Mencken, Virginia, which is the closest United States Historical Climatology Network station in Virginia to Washington, D.C. It doesn't look like carbon dioxide is doing a very good job heating up the Washington, D.C. area. Temperatures aren't going up, but energy prices certainly are, thanks to the brilliant leadership we have in Washington, D.C. 100 years ago, H.L. Mencken said, "As democracy is perfected, the office of president represents more and more closely the inner soul of the people. On some great and glorious day, the plain folks of the land will reach their heart's desire at last, and the White House will be adorned by a downright moron. Toto believes that we've reached that goal of perfecting democracy. You can visit him, Curie, and Caesar on the web at realclimatescience.com.